they know that everyone who's there with them is in the same boat. So even if sometimes, maybe in a study hall, they're going to ask a question about something, they know that the child sitting next to them might actually have the same question in a few minutes. And they don't have to worry, about any stigma, because, everyone at Dunnabeck has a language-based learning disability.
I'm Nicole Holcomb, attorney by day and podcaster by night, a former educator, school counselor, and administrator, and mom to a 9-year-old daughter with dyslexia, who loves all things Harry Potter, Minecraft, and science. A few years ago, she was identified with dyslexia, and our life seemed to turn upside down for a while, quite literally. I created the Dyslexia Mom Life podcast to help you navigate the upside down journey of dyslexia. You got this. If you're wanting to thrive as a mom in this dyslexia journey, then you're in the right place. Let's get started. You are listening to episode 66. I'm your host, Nicole, and today I'm honored to be having a conversation with Karl Oppenheimer. He is the senior director of Kildonan's Camp Dunnabeck, and I don't know about you, but I am one mom who is ready for summer 2021. And as you may know, or as you may be finding out quickly here, summer for our kiddos with dyslexia looks different. It looks very different than what our summers looked like, or maybe even the neighbor's child. So for our children with dyslexia, they continue to work hard into the summer. But you know what? They can work hard while still having fun. And Camp Dunnabeck has found a way to make that happen, to provide opportunities for kids to enjoy camp and have fun, at the same time having very structured remediation plans for reading and writing and math as well if that's needed. And so we're going to be talking about that today. And I can't think of a better person to be having this conversation with than Karl. Not only is he the senior director, like I mentioned, but prior to that, he served for the Kildonan school as a dorm parent, a teacher, a coach, an admissions officer, and a dean of students. He currently is the administrator at the Greenwood School. And something that's also unique to this conversation is that Karl himself is actually an alumni of the Kildonan School, and he's the president of the Alumni Association. Karl is no stranger to dyslexia. He himself struggled through elementary school many times, having difficulties throughout elementary school, even spelling his own name. It wasn't until he was in 6th grade that he was actually diagnosed with dyslexia, and he had the opportunity to enroll in the Kildonan School, and it made all the difference in his life and the dream of attending and graduating from college. So, without further ado, I would love for you to listen to our conversation, sit back, relax, and learn about not only what you can find as far as what's available at this particular camp, but also just talking about the benefits of summer camp and how we can make it fun, but also educational as our kids continue to progress in their remediation. And we also don't want them slipping and losing what they worked so hard at this year to gain. I hope you enjoy this conversation with Karl as much as I did. Today on the podcast, I have Karl Oppenheimer with us, and he is the senior director of Kildonan's Camp Dunnabeck. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so delighted to have you with us. And before we get started, I just want to say congratulations on 66 years for your camp this year. How exciting is that?
Thank you so much. We are very proud.
Well, if you don't mind, Karl, can you just start off by doing a little bit of welcome for yourself before we get into the camp and just talking a little bit about the benefits of camp for children with dyslexia? But can you just introduce yourself to our audience and tell a little bit about your background and how long you've been with the camp?
Sure. My name is Karl Oppenheimer. I am the senior director of Camp Dunnabeck. And my affiliation with Dunnabeck goes back to the 1980s, when I was actually a student at the school arm of camp, Kildonan School, and I attended there for my 10th through 12th grade years and graduated. And then after college, I began working at Dunnabeck in 1990. And continued on to the school. And I worked at Kildonan and Dunnabeck for worked at Kildonan for 29 years. Unfortunately, Kildonan closed its doors in 2019. But I have, continued to work at Dunnabeck, right up to now. I started as a tutor, and then tutored for several years, became, sort of head of the dorms, and then assistant director, and have evolved into senior director.
That sounds like, so you are the right person to be talking about this topic today then. So I'm excited that we're connecting. I really am, Karl. It's going to be great. So having been a student yourself, did you ever have the opportunity to go to the camp, or were you just a student at the school, or were you able to experience both?
I did not have an opportunity to go to the camp. I started right up as a student at the school.
Okay.
And back then, if you attended the school, you generally didn't come to the camp. Okay. There were some very few exceptions to that, but the idea was, as you'll hear, the work we do at Kildonan and Dunnabeck is pretty intense. Mm-hmm. And the idea was, after a school year of it, it might be nice to take a little break.
Yeah.
Continue doing, some reading at home with folks, but, go out and do something fun, travel, stuff like that. That was Diana King's idea. Mm-hmm. And then what often happened, kids would come to the camp and find that, they've made so much progress that, wouldn't it be nice? And in fact, it speaks a little bit to the history of how Dunnabeck, or how Kildonan happened. But as I was saying, they realize they make so much progress during camp that, maybe this would be something that, would be good to do all year long. So they would enroll in the school program, which interestingly is sort of how Kildonan came into being. The camp started in 1955 in Western Pennsylvania, and was an 8-week program. And so kids would come, they'd make tons of progress, they go back to their school year, and very often it was the case that their experience at the camp allowed them to make enough progress to get through the school year pretty successfully. And then they'd come back and they'd do the same thing. Sometimes it was, one of the things that happened at camp was a family would discover, this is the way my kids should be learning all year long. Right. And one family once at the end of camp said to Diana just that, this is the way my son needs to be learning all year long. How about opening a school? Mm-hmm. And Diana said, well, I would love to, but I don't have the money. Well, the guy she was talking to happened to, the story is, I believe this might be true. The story is that this gentleman happened to have invented the juice box. Oh. He owned a dairy company and made, a lot of boxes for milk, and decided, wouldn't it be neat to put some juice in one of these boxes? And lo and behold, now you can't walk 10 feet without seeing a juice box. Right. So he had a little spare cash on his hands, and he provided the money to open the school. And so in 1969, Kildonan School opened as an offshoot of Camp Dunnabeck. And so what continued there was the one-on-one tutoring. It's always been the philosophy of Dunnabeck and Kildonan to do one-on-one tutoring every day, or Orton Gillingham, one-on-one Orton Gillingham tutoring for every student. And so that continued, but what was added was subject matter, history, science, math, all done in a multisensory approach. And so that continued through, to 1980 when we moved to New York. And so we opened the New York campus and moved the Dunnabeck campus. The original Kildonan campus was in New Hope, Pennsylvania. It was separate from the Dunnabeck campus. So in 1980, when we moved to Amenia, we combined the two campuses.
Okay.
And that continued through 2019. And actually, we're now in the process of starting up Kildonan again, but on the Marvelwood campus where Dunnabeck now takes place. Okay. And so students will be able to come to Marvelwood and benefit from the same one-on-one tutoring and multisensory classroom style that we were doing at Kildonan. But I digressed a little bit.
No, that's great. That's great to have that background. It's good to know that piece so better understand the history of the school and also the history of the camp. So let's talk a little bit about the camp. So for parents that are looking for, what do we do in the summers, especially for parents that are really new to dyslexia and maybe they're just, trying to kind of figure this journey out and they're like, well, we should just take the summer off, which we all know at the beginning of remediation is something you can't do, unfortunately, unless you're in certain situations like you were sharing a few minutes ago. So when you think about let's talk about first, before we talk about the camp specifics, let's talk about, because you do have a lot of knowledge in this area. You've worked in this world for a long time. So what do you see as the benefits for children who continue to work over the summers that are dyslexic? What are some of the benefits that you see?
So first of all, it avoids the what's common over the summer is there's sort of a summer slide or summer slip in terms of skills. And so it may be the case that at the end of a school year, a child has held some progress, and then the prospect of a whole summer without remediation can cause some of those gains or skills to fall a little bit. And so the idea of Dunnabeck is they're still going to have a fun summer because we fill Dunnabeck with all sorts of fun activities, traditional summer camp activities, horseback riding, swimming, tennis, soccer, art, fun trips on the weekends. But there's also the component that every student has every day, 5 days a week, every student has a one-on-one Orton Gillingham tutoring session where they're going to work on their reading, writing, and spelling skills and composition, so that and actually it ends up that often we found in a summer kids could make possibly more progress in the 6 weeks of the summer than they tend to in a full year at a place like Kildonan, because we take away all those other.
They can just concentrate, right? On one thing, yeah.
My colleagues my teaching colleagues may be upset if I say take away all those other distractions of subject matter.
Right.
But that's really one of the things that makes it successful is, kids are not worrying about, math homework, although we do offer some math tutoring at Dunnabeck, but they're not, they don't have social studies, they don't have history or
projects they're working on,
science work that they're doing, which is not to say, they might go out and do some practical science out, on a nature trail or, gardening with a group. But they're not going to have science class. They're not going to have history class. They will have the tutoring in which they're going to work on reading, writing, spelling. They'll do some composition, and then they will go have fun. And we intermingle all the tutoring and study hall with those fun activities. So they might have a tutoring session, and then they'll have art class, an art activity. And then they might have a study hall, and then they might have horseback riding. So we really try to balance it so that summer stays something really fun.
Right. They can really spend time in those passions and strengths. And then, too, explore areas they might not have otherwise. Like you were saying, there's such a variety. It might give some children an opportunity to, maybe they live in an area where they don't go horseback riding or they don't have opportunities. And so it sounds like they also have the opportunity to explore other options that they might not otherwise would do. So that's great. With the one-on-one tutoring, does it depend on the age of the student, or do you have it where it's, an hour a day or 2 hours a day? What does the length usually look like, or does it change from day to day?
So the tutoring period for every camper is 1 hour. And then that will be followed up with, and supported with, an hour of study hall. And the idea of that 1 hour study hall is for them to do assignments based on what they learned in tutoring that will reinforce what they learned. So they will learn new things in tutoring, and then they'll have assignments that are broken up into, sort of short blocks for them to do. And it reinforces what they learned in the tutoring session. Those study halls are supervised by a tutor, someone who's trained to understand how to help them if they do end up needing some help. So they're not on their own. So they have someone who can, just restart them or refocus them.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what would you say? I mean, obviously you're partial to your camp, but what do you feel like are some of the unique pieces? I mean, it's been going on for 66 years. So y'all found the secret sauce somewhere, right? So what do you feel like I don't know that you are familiar with other camps that help children with dyslexia, but as far as the experience that you hear parents saying, as far as why they keep coming back and back to Dunnabeck, I've got a personal friend that I know, her daughter's been there more than one summer and it's going back this summer. So can you talk to me a little bit about and share a little bit about, what you think it is that the thing that keeps people coming back, or what is it that's unique about your camp, or, what is the thing that lights the kids up while they're there?
I think one of the most important things is that kids can come to Dunnabeck and they don't need to worry about, competing with their peers based on academics or things that go on in school. They can compete with their peers in healthy ways on the soccer field, or in a horseback riding ring, in the swimming pool, things like that. They're not going to be feeling judged by their peers based on what they can or can't do academically. When they're in tutoring, it's just them and their tutor. There are no other kids in that space who are going to be, as I say, they don't have to demonstrate their disasters to their peers. It's a safe place for them to make some mistakes in that tutoring space.
Right. And it seems like, too, from the moms I've talked to and just the experience I've even had personally, children do make so much more gains if you're in a situation and you have the advantage of having that one-on-one as opposed to 1 to 3 or 1 to 4. Even those smaller groups are good if that's what you can get, but that one-on-one, it really can make all the difference. Do you find that as well?
I absolutely do. I think it's the main thing. I think it's what makes the main difference, because that's such a secure arrangement for them.
Right, absolutely.
I also want to add that, another important factor is they know that everyone who's there with them is in the same boat. So even if sometimes, maybe in a study hall, they're going to ask a question about something, they know that the child sitting next to them might actually have the same question in a few minutes. And they don't have to worry, about any stigma, because, everyone at Dunnabeck has a language-based learning disability, usually dyslexia. Some have difficulty with handwriting, written expression. That kind of comes with the territory.
So thank you for clarifying that too, because I think that's important for them to hear. You talked a little bit a few minutes ago about it being 6 weeks, the camp's 6 weeks. We haven't really talked about ages. Are there age groups, and how does that kind of work? And does that look different depending on which age group you're in, or is everybody kind of kind of walk me through what would be a good age for a child to go to a camp like Dunnabeck? And then is it something that you find, let's say my daughter's in 4th grade, for example, if my daughter were to come to the camp, do you find that those campers come back and then they really are building relationships with other kids? Because I think that's one of the benefits of camps in general, right? That they're able to go back and really have those bonds with their campers. And then, like you said, I think what's so unique about a dyslexia camp is, they do know that they have very similar backgrounds many times with just struggling with this, and being able to know that, keeping up with each other through the school year, or just, there's just a lot of ways now that, not when we were younger, but for our kids, they have, all these other ways, emails, FaceTime, text messaging, social media. There's just so many ways for them to keep in touch. So I know I just threw a bunch of questions at once. So let me go back, which is, what is a good age to start in the camp? Like, what does your age groups look like?
Well, there's lots of good ages to start. The camp goes from age 8 through 16, and we group kids generally by age. So 8 and 9-year-olds would be together, 10 to 13-year-olds would be together, 14 to 16-year-olds would be together. Folks age out at 16, but there is a community that gets built over time, and the kids really feel it. I have this summer, I have two campers, I have two kids. I have two counselors, two folks who are going to work as counselors. And they both started at camp, coming to camp when they were in middle school. And one is going to be a counselor in training. He's 17. And the other is going to be a general counselor. He's about to graduate from college. And, they went to hear them speak of their Dunnabeck experience is pretty heartwarming, because it's their total motivation to come back to serve as counselors. They talk about wanting to give back. They talk about all the progress they made and how meaningful it was to be in the Dunnabeck environment. So it sort of speaks volumes to the kind of community feel and family feel that we build here.
Right. You took the words right out of my mouth. I was just about to say that, which is, it does speak volumes when students want to come back, and then they know how beneficial it was for them, that they want to now provide the same experience for students that are younger than them and for campers. And so that is huge. And then they know, what they found a benefit. So they want to make sure that kids coming up get that same benefit. So that's amazing. Now, I know that you have a couple different, I don't know if you call them groups, that's probably not the right word, but different programs, I guess, within your camp. So let's talk a little bit about, I know you have a day camper. So tell me a little bit about, like, what does a typical day look like for a day camper?
So actually, a typical day for a day camper would look very much the same as the rest of the campers. The difference would be that they would join us at about 8:30 in the morning. But then they would mix in to the other activities with the other campers. And they would leave camp they would leave campus at about 5:30. The boarding students would go on to have some evening programming.
So it's a full day then for them as well.
It is
The
a
day
full
campers,
day.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Now, I also noticed when I was looking at some of the information that you also are offering some type of online camper experience this year with everything going on. Can you share that a little bit about that program with us?
So last year, we were unfortunately not able to open in person because of the pandemic. So, but we were quite convinced that there would still be a need for folks to to benefit from the Orton Gillingham tutoring that we offer. So we set up a program where we would have some online tutoring. And it wasn't just sort of random online tutoring. We set it up so that it would be, would meet the Kildonan Dunnabeck standard. Our tutors were supervised. We made assurances of their training, and we followed up with them. We did some observations. We, followed up with the weekly reports from the tutors. And we provided reports, at the end of the summer. So, progress reports. Now, in addition to that, it was called Camp Dunnabeck. We called it 2.0, play on the online thing. So we wanted it to reflect the camp part of that name. So we connected, and I have to give credit to my camp director, Sean Andrews, who, he's done a lot of work in assistive technology and educational technology. Through a number of connections that he was able to connect with a person who provided a program of building 3D worlds. And so kids could sign up for this class in building 3D worlds. We had another class in, it was similar to that. And then in addition to that, we offered math tutoring. We offered some additional composition classes. And then we also, again, making it stay like camp, we built our own, with the help of these folks, we built our own little virtual camp that when you went on to it, it looked a lot like Kildonan and Dunnabeck. It was a little cartoony, but it had our waterfront and our little staging area, and our boathouse. You could actually take a canoe ride around our lake. But we also, we set up a little stage area. And, one of the things that was going on during the pandemic is a lot of musical artists, they needed to, continue doing their work, but they couldn't do it live. So you could have them, and it wasn't very expensive at all. You could have them do a concert for you. So every Friday we had a little concert, and you could you'd bring your you set up yourself in your avatar, and you'd go to the pond area where we had our stage, and everyone would be watching the screen. You could make your avatar dance if you wanted to. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, it sounds like fun. So that's great that you were able to pivot and that you're continuing to offer yet another opportunity for, campers to be involved. Tell me a little bit about your camp dates this year. What's the camp going to run this year? What dates? Do you know?
If I can backtrack a little back to the online,
Absolutely.
We did decide to continue offering the online programming. So this year that's called Dunnabeck 2.1.
Okay.
So we still have that available, but we're also going to make it a hybrid. So some of our on-campus events will be live streamed onto the online environment.
That'll be even better, I think. Yeah, that'll give them the feeling like they're really there for those that can't make it in person. So that's great.
Exactly.
I think that'll be a nice addition as well. So, Karl, tell me a little bit about your counselors. I understand your counseling staff comes from just amazing backgrounds. So tell us a little bit about your counseling staff.
So about half of the staff come from different parts of Europe, some from England, some from Scotland, some from Eastern Europe. And so it provides a nice sort of cultural enhancement for the kids. They get to meet folks from other countries. They get to talk about, all of the different things that go on in other countries. And the counselors really benefit from it too. They get to see culture of children in the United States.
And are those camp counselors, are those also Orton Gillingham trained, or is that a different part of your staff?
No, so that's a separate staff. So we have our tutoring staff and then our camp counseling staff.
Okay.
The camp counselors would be, they're active during the day as well. So they're going to be moving kids from one activity to the other. None of our kids are ever without an adult. So they serve as those adults who are supervising them at all times. And then in the dorms, they would be providing some evening activities. They would put the kids to bed, wake them up, and get them to breakfast. So that kind of.
So about how many campers would you say is assigned to a camp counselor?
About 10. Usually about 10 to 15.
Okay.
It depends on the size of that group, but
sure.
Yeah.
And
there's usually about 2 counselors with each group.
Okay. All right. And about how big is your camp? I mean, not in the middle of a pandemic, but on a regular year, what is your maximum? You said, we'll keep rolling until we're full. What is full like for you guys?
So full is about 80 students.
Okay.
We've had that many in the past. I think this summer, perhaps 40-ish.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see.
And how big is your camp as far as acreage?
Well, the Marvelwood School is on, I believe, about 100 acres of land.
Okay.
A lot of that land is nature conservatory. So lots of great places to walk and explore. But then, there is a the part we use the most is maybe 8 acres.
Okay. So plenty of places to get out and explore, it sounds like.
Absolutely.
Okay. So what kind of feedback have you got from your campers as they meet these counselors? Are they able, do they come back year after year, the same counselors, or do you usually have different people? Do they sometimes get to see their counselor again, or how does that work?
Yeah, some do.
Okay.
We've had some counselors come back. For instance, a couple of our waterfront directors each stayed for like 20 years.
Okay.
We've had counselors come back for 4 and 5 years, and then some. Often they're the European culture involves sort of a gap year, and so many of them are sometimes doing this for their gap year.
Okay.
And so it might be a one-time stint, and then they move on to do something else.
Right. Well, I think too, earlier I asked you about what makes your camp stand out and what makes your camp unique, and I imagine that multicultural experience that students get, especially for students that are doing a camp here in the United States that's not able to travel like they would otherwise, it gives them that opportunity to have that culture within the camp. So that's a great addition as well.
That's right.
So we were going to talk a little bit about camp dates. What are camp dates for this summer?
So camp begins on July 5th and ends on August 14th.
Okay. And do you have a deadline for people to register for camp?
May 1st. But we'll continue rolling until we're full. So, that's the preferred deadline, but keep calling us if you
right, if you're interested. Absolutely. Now, on April 17th, you're having an open house. Is that a virtual open house or is that an in-person open house?
It will be virtual.
Okay.
We still won't be ready to be on site at that point, but it will be broadcast online.
Okay, awesome. Well, we'll make sure to get that information into the show notes. I know you already have one virtual open house that's available for people to view even today. I
That's
watched
correct.
it. It was very good. So I'll put that link in the show notes as well so people can see and get that information. And I'll also include links to the website where people can learn more about the camp. You've got a lot of information out there that's very helpful to people. What would you say, pulling all this together, what would you want to say to parents as they're thinking about what do we do this summer and how do we make this the most impactful summer academically, but also, giving our children an opportunity to really, just soar and be a kid for the summer? And so do you have any parting thoughts or maybe even advice for parents?
Well, I think after what we have, I'm a teacher, an administrator at a boarding school, so I understand some of the frustrations that kids and parents and teachers like myself have experienced this year. I just think it'll be really meaningful for kids to be, out in the open, enjoying the outside, doing things with other kids, particularly, but specifically at Dunnabeck, doing things with kids who, have similar, not only similar learning styles, but also interests, and really are looking to have a really fun summer.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you, Karl, so much for coming on and sharing about Camp Dunnabeck. It sounds like an amazing place to spend the summer. I am too old to come and do that, but it sounds like an amazing opportunity. And I appreciate you sharing all the amazing things that your camp is offering. And I just am so appreciative of all the different pieces you've put in place, you and your administration, from 2.0 to 2.1. I mean, just thinking outside the box as dyslexics do anyway. And so thank you and your camp for all that you're doing as well.
You're so welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
All right. What a great conversation. Thank you so much for listening today. If you want to find out more information and connect with this particular camp and learn more about Karl's story, you can go to dyslexiamomlife.com/episode 66. And if you want to learn more about just summer camps in general, I've been compiling those for you. You can go to dyslexiamomlife.com/summer 2021. And if you know of camps that I don't have listed, reach out and let me know. I would love to know if there are additional camps in your area and programs for the summer that I need to include so that everyone has access. And remember, the great thing about this particular summer is a lot of programs are also providing some type of virtual option for summer camps. So for people that can't travel. And so I think that's a great option. Either you can't travel or maybe you are traveling to visit family and you need that more flexibility. And if you are in the place where you're just starting to figure out your dyslexia journey, but you're stuck a little bit, I would love for you to hop over and learn more about the Dyslexia Parenting Academy. I have some resources for you, especially if you're starting out on your journey. And if you need just additional help from me or you need just additional resources, if you just go to dyslexiamomlife.com, you'll see a tab that says Start Here, and that will provide you with resources. It'll also provide you with, just a wealth of knowledge, blog posts, podcasts I recommend, and that will help you get you on your way. All right, thanks. Have a great day, an amazing week as we get closer and closer to summer. And remember, you got this.